or is he not really hurting for the money? You know what I mean? But let's get into his next post. Was titled, "Am I the asshole for breaking a needless promise after fixing a situation?" And then the post reads as follows. "A while back, my significant other and I hit a rough patch. I'm an avid player of Star Citizen, and admittedly, I tend to go overboard with it. A few months ago, during a sale, I impulsively spent our saved down payment for a house on virtual spaceships. Our saved down payment for a house. Holy shit. Understandably, she was furious and temporarily left. I realized my mistake, apologized, and took on an extra job to replenish our savings. I'm close to restoring our financial status to its original state, though it will take another 6 months to fully recover, not accounting for my personal debt. As part of the reconciling, she asked me not to purchase any more spaceships for 6 months. Initially, this seemed reasonable, but over time, I've come to view it as somewhat excessive. Despite this, I recently bought a few more spaceships, and she discovered it, now considering leaving me for good. I thought that by nearly restoring the savings I had spent, I made amends for my actions. I genuinely enjoy collecting spaceships in the game. She's also concerned about my credit score and other financial issues, but I'm confident I can rectify those in the coming years, given that I've already managed to recover most of our savings through extra work. I'm struggling to understand if I'm in the wrong for breaking what now seems like an arbitrary promise, or if her reaction to leave over what I consider my primary hobby is unjustified." And now let's get into some comments. And someone says, "Here, I fixed it for you. I'm a professional gambler. One night, I gambled all of our mutual savings for a down payment away. She was pissed and we agreed on me working extra shifts to pay back the savings and not to gamble for at least 6 months. I paid back the savings and now gambling again like nothing happened, and I didn't betray her trust by gambling our savings away in the first place. Now she doesn't trust me anymore and wants to leave me, and I have no idea why. Also, my credit sucks now and I still have my personal debts while spending money on gambling again. Why doesn't she want a future with me anymore? What else can she want with a dude with debts, bad credit, and a gambling addiction who already gambled away your mutual savings once? I'm a catch, but she somehow doesn't see it this way? Why?" So this commenter is obviously kind of replacing the gaming addiction with gambling, and it makes it seem kind of worse. And then the OP has a interesting response to this, saying, "It is not gambling because I own looted." And I agree. The OP just seems so like just kind of delusional. It's like, why does my girlfriend not see this as a hobby? Because you spent your fucking down payment on a house on video games. I mean, anybody would leave their significant other after that. Or not everybody, but a significant amount of people would. I mean, like, imagine you work your ass off, you're saving up with your significant other, and then boom, spends all the money on a video game. How does this guy not see that he's the problem here? And then another commenter says, "Wait, you spent $15,000 on digital spaceships in a game that were to be used for a house down payment behind the back of your spouse? After she discovered it, you told her that you'd replenish the money and stop buying ships for 6 months? You did get a job, and before both conditions were met, you already bought another goddamn spaceship? And you have the audacity to pretend they are investments in one comment and say that you would never sell them in another? Which is it, dipshit? Let me tell you, it's going to be a divorce. Please never reproduce and get your addiction under control before ever getting another girlfriend. Forget the judgment, in case it wasn't clear enough." And then someone else says, $15,000 on a video game? He's lucky she didn't stab him. Someone else says he buried the lead too. He's just now kind of realizing that. It took her leaving him to even begin to think, oh, how do I get better? He hasn't listened to any of the comments suggesting get therapy, go to some sort of addiction counseling or whatever, talk to anybody. And now that he finally left her, now he's like, okay, I guess I'll get help. I guess I have an addiction. Like, it's so delayed, like he never even realized or wanted to take the advice that people gave him earlier. So what says he's going to take it now, you know? But let's get into some comments. Someone says, so let me get this straight. Number 1, you stole her money to buy pixel spaceships. Number 2, she forgave you as long as you stopped buying pixel spaceships. Number 3, you kept buying pixel spaceships. Number 4, you refused to fix the problem by selling off your pixel spaceships. Number 5, she realizes you love pixel spaceships more than her and left for good. I mean, dude, I'm sorry, but she's well shut of you. She's never coming back, and if she did, she'd still resent you. The childish response would be to keep sinking money you don't have into Star Citizen. The moral response would be to sell your account and send her the money that you owe her after you stole her savings. Someone else says, dude, I'm looking at your post history. You're in full-on denial about how you're spending/gaming addiction. You 1000% have an issue after you spent $15,000 in 6 months on optional purchases for a mobile game. And I looked it up. It's not a mobile game. It's a PC game. So I don't know why this commenter said that. But then they said, there's no way you can salvage the relationship without first addressing this issue. And even then, the chances are low that she'll take you back. If anything, you need to do this for yourself and your future. Do you want to have bad credit / be alone / be in debt to a game 10 years from now? You need to go cold turkey with this game. Sell your account / ships and lock yourself out of your account and go to therapy. And then the OP makes another post saying, resisting the urge to buy more ships. These repeat sales are making it quite difficult to leave the old credit card holstered. I can't be the only one. I do like that we get each a second chance though. And then some people in the comments say, don't buy more ships, dude. And then the OP said, I didn't. Someone else says, this profile has to be a troll at this point. If not, holy fuck, get actual help, like a therapist or a psych. Someone else says, I think so too. Looking at his fleet pick from 2 weeks ago, surely he's not missing any ship either, flight ready or concept. And then the OP says, missing a cutter. I don't really know what that terminology means. And then the OP makes a final update saying, hey, I ruined my life over a video game. It's all starting to come together for me. I essentially ruined my life over a video game. I'm in massive unrecoverable debt. My girlfriend left me. My parents are refusing to speak to me. I have constant anxiety. My life is falling apart. I'm going to lose my job and I might lose my apartment. I haven't spent any money on games in a bit. I don't know. Sorry, this is so disorganized. I just need to vent. And then the OP makes one final post about this titled, since these posts were made or the final post was made. So hopefully he hasn't kept falling. Hopefully he learned from his mistakes and started to recover and got his life back together, but who knows really. My adultery ruined my life. I hate myself for it. I'm writing this with a lot of pain in mind. I don't expect people to give me sympathy. I just wanted to share my story so that people could take a lesson. So please, before you cheat on your husband / wife / partner, think about what you are giving up for a few minutes of pleasure. I, 37 male, married my wife. I realized I knew jack shit about my kids. My son was a picky eater. My daughter was still very little. She would cry a lot. It was exhausting. No matter how much I try, my son would always complain about everything and tell me that's not how his mother did it. That wasn't the end of the problems. Things with my girlfriend became bland way too soon. My wife would always have a home-cooked meal ready for me, but my girlfriend is just happy to have leftover or frozen. He hated me, and my girlfriend would never be his mommy. It struck me like a thunder. Things ended with her right there. On the other hand, Annie started to change a lot. She lost a lot of weight. She looked relaxed and like her old self. I once complimented her that she looked good. I only got a cold thank you back. I got to know from a mutual friend of ours that she would sometimes say that the divorce made her realize she deserved better. And things got better because she had some time for herself. Before that, she had to clean up my mess, and now there's hardly any mess left. I was hit with another realization that I treated her badly. I never helped her when she needed my help the most. Annie understood me. She was kind and passionate. She was just going through a rough phase and I kicked her to the curb. I went into depression. I asked Annie if she'd give me a chance. She said no. I don't blame her. From my son, I got to know she started dating an old friend of hers. My son loves him. My daughter calls him Dada. I tried my best for my daughter to call me that, but she didn't. I met them together at a business convention. That man had his arms around my Annie and was showing her off. I was angry. I felt this rage inside of me. Later that night, I drank a lot and started to call Annie. I spewed nonsense that her new boy toy is nothing but a weak man that is dating a pathetic single mom like her. I know this because the next day, she came to my house along with my parents. My parents ripped me apart and said to stay the hell away from Annie. I lost my kids, my wife, and I already lost my parents after the divorce. I never felt so alone. I wake up on my bed empty. Annie would always cuddle me early in the morning. I missed her warmth. Things between my son didn't improve. He probably knows why me and his mother aren't together. Good luck. I know she picked a better man, and I hope she gets everything she deserves. She said she forgives me, but she doesn't want any kind of relationship with, unless, of course, it is about the kids. I also sat down with my son and said sorry to him too. I am an idiot that I didn't realize this whole thing put him and his sister in a weird position. I told both of them sorry individually. My son is, he blew it, not you. Never feel guilty for being a sympathetic and reasonable person. Shame on him for failing you as a partner. And shame on him for being a piece of shit. Maybe now that the police are involved, this may really be a wake-up call he needed. However, you are not obligated to give him a third chance. And good for you for not doing so. Now give yourself some grace you gave him and put your life back together how you want it. Make yourself happy. And then the OP replies to this commenter saying, maybe now that the police are involved, this may really be a wake-up call he needed. And the OP replies to that saying, I was so embarrassed when I found out what he did and that the police are involved. My husband doesn't seem to share my feelings. He wasn't embarrassed or bothered by this at all. I found out that gambling on sports is becoming more and more of a problem. I never thought it would happen to me. And then another commenter says, I'm really sorry you're going through this. It's an addiction that's going to need far more than just couples counseling. Recovery is possible, but you got to do what you need to protect yourself in your financial present and future as well. Without sounds like he's escalating. He may find himself in major debt, or even worse, if he doesn't actually get help. I will be the rare one to say, don't rush to a divorce just yet. But starting to reserve and secure finances on your own that he does not have access to should be your first and top priority. Make sure you start having money in your own account away. Everyone was reliant on blue-collar work to make a living, mostly construction/contracting, as well as landscaping, building, automotive work, etc. By the time I could walk and talk, I'd always been on a construction site, helping in the garage or learning about tools/equipment. I thought I was so much more progressed than kids my age and older, seeing how I knew how to do so much stuff already before they could. I learned a lot about safety in regards to power tools, being safe in unfinished homes with hazards everywhere, things like that. By the time I was 10, I worked every day with my dad and my grandpa after school while they ran their construction business. Always grabbing tools, cleaning up, learning how to use power saws, drills, and other handheld tools. By the time I was 12, young me became pretty cocky in my abilities. I had rebuilt a dirt bike, mowed lawns in the spring and summer, used weed whackers, chainsaws, hedge trimmers, the works. By this time, I worked full-time in the summers as a sort of apprentice to my grandfather to remodel homes, do repairs, and a multitude of different construction projects. During the school year, I would work after school and on weekends with my dad doing similar work, but more landscaping than construction. Long rant, I know, but this is to set the stage as to why I felt confident in my abilities I had at the time. During the spring of 2012, my family lived in central Colorado. In the spring is when we get the most snow. I had always spent winter/spring making money by shoveling snow, clearing ice off walkways or driveways, and moving the huge house was still stacked to the brim with my dad's and grandfather's extra tools. That year, the snowfall was record-breaking. I believe in March, we got so snowed in we couldn't even open the front door. And for anyone who has ever spent hours upon hours shoveling snow, you'll know it's a lot of work. And being a kid, I was wore out and wanted to make more money faster so I could be inside sooner and play video games or draw. Well, that's where the snowblower comes in. My dad had bought a brand new Kubota snowblower with a twin stage blade that was 28 inches across. The thing was intimidating, sure, but my dad taught me how to use it the winter before because he was too drunk to bother with snow blowing. I decided that I would use said snowblower to clear people's driveways, walkways, and the sidewalks as opposed to shoveling it all by hand. This led to me digging the snowblower out of the garage and fighting with the things piled and stacked around it to finally get it out. After maybe an hour of playing Tetris, scratching my mom's car, and knocking over God knows what in the process, it was out. My prepubescent brain could only think about one thing. Hell yeah, time to make some money. I started with our driveway, before anyone else's. I fought with starting the blower for longer than I'd like to admit. YouTube still didn't have instruction videos for everything, and I finally got it going. Trying to do it like my dad had shown me the year before, I managed to sloppily snow blow our entire driveway and sidewalk. 12-year-old me was elated, and I felt much more confident in this idea, in this business plan, because in my stupid, underdeveloped brain, I'm now a pro because I managed not to break anything or hurt myself. Stupid thought process, no doubt. This led to me drawing up a whole business model, and I was ready to take the neighborhood by storm. That night, I stayed up for hours making flyers. On my walk home, I put one into every mailbox I passed, and put them on the windows of cars that were buried in the snowdrift from the plows. By the time I made it home, I had gotten rid of at least 40 of them, and I sat waiting eagerly by the landline phone well into the evening. I even begged my mom to not answer the phone if someone called because it could be a customer. This is probably a great time to throw in the fact that my mother, who wasn't really present as a parent or as emotionally involved as most, now going through a messy split with my dad, they'd been together for over 20 years, had no clue that I was doing this. She just thought I was still shoveling snow for the neighbors. I waited late but the evening, hoping for a phone call from literally anyone. I thought at first people are having dinner. They're probably busy. Then I thought that nobody had bothered to check their mail yet. By the time 8 p.m. rolled around, I was discouraged and angry, feeling like my plan wasn't going to work. So that night, I decided to take a more direct approach. In my mind, I concluded that most people don't work on Saturdays, so people will be home. So what I'll do is go door to door with the snowblower to offer to clear people's driveways. And there's no possible way they could turn me down because I have a snowblower and could get it done fast. And they can enjoy their weekend in their pajamas while I'm the one freezing my ass off. So that night, I went into the garage, brought the snowblower close to the door, filled it with gas that had been sitting for God knows how long, and covered it with a blue tarp, hoping my mom wouldn't notice it moved when she went back to work in the morning. That Saturday morning at 8 a.m. sharp, I heard the garage open and my mom leave for work. Although I had already been awake waiting anxiously for her to leave, I jumped out of bed and threw on all of my snow gear, ate my daily breakfast of dry and clumpy maple brown sugar oatmeal, and ran to the garage to pull out the snowblower. I thought I should do our driveway first, but realized if I was going to secretly use the snowblower, I'd have to do it very last so my mom wouldn't know I took it out. Stupid logic, I know, but I thought I was being so smart. So I rolled it out to the street and started making my way throughout the neighborhood. I started banging on doors to meet people that were not thrilled to be woken up to a shivering snot-nosed kid on their porch first thing in the morning on a Saturday. So they were pretty quick to blow me off. I think it was the 5th or 6th door that I knocked on my street that someone agreed to let me clear their driveway for $10. Huge money when you're 12. Was I could spray snow 10 feet away. At the time, they were building a fort, and having extra snow to build it in was a no-brainer. So I said I wanted to snow blow their driveway and blow all the snow into the yard beside it so we could have a huge fort and we could play in the snow after. I started off the sidewalk so I could maneuver the snowblower easier. And as I was doing this, multiple kids from this family were standing by, wanting to get blasted by the huge shower of snow that would come out of the chute. Everyone was laughing, running around, throwing snowballs, and we were all yelling at each other about how fun this was over the loud engine in the snowblower. Everything seemed to be going fine. I started working my way up the driveway with the blower. All the snow was going to the side of the yard where the fort was as according to plan. And all the other kids there were loving getting blasted by the snow and piling snow together to add the fort. At this time, a kid younger than me, let's call him John, was running back and forth across the driveway while I was running the snowblower. If anyone here has used one before, you'll know it rolls automatically when the throttle handle is engaged. As he was doing this, I was preoccupied with trying to keep the blower in a straight line, watching the snow spray all over the lawn, and trying to hold on tight to the machine. Honestly, what happened next was so shocking and so anxiety-inducing in the moment, and even now, that it gets a little blurry. Somehow, some way, as John was running back and forth across the driveway, he fell in the snow right in front of the machine. I only noticed it when I saw his hands and head on the ground. When I saw this, I let go of the throttle as well as the blade control, and all I could hear was him screaming and the motor running on the machine. I've never had such a gut-sinking feeling in my entire life, even to this day, and I've seen some awful shit. Everyone stopped what they were doing and ran over to John, who is now laying on the ground with his leg wrapped up inside the snow blower blade. I was screaming to the point where I started hyperventilating. I shut off the motor by hitting the kill switch on the side of it and started panicking. I tried to pull his leg out and turn the blades, but anyone who's ever used one knows they lock in place when the motor isn't on. At this point, everyone is in hysterics, and one of John's siblings ran inside to get their mom. She comes running out, screaming and justifiably horrified to see her youngest kid's leg wrapped up in a snow blower blade. We all sat practically shitting our pants for the next 10 minutes watching John's mom try and wiggle and maneuver his leg out of the snow blower blade. He's screaming and crying and saying how much it hurts, and all I can think about is how my mom is going to actually kill me. I'm screaming I'm sorry over and over again. The other kids are yelling at me. John's mom is screaming at me, and the whole ordeal has me stuck in fight or flight mode. After about 15 minutes of wrestling John's leg out of the machine, covered it with the same blue tarp from earlier, ran to the bathroom and vomited it all over myself and all over the floor. I spent the next few hours shaking and dry heaving and thinking about how I'm going to hide this from my mom. After at least an hour and a half worth of having a panic attack, I realized that I now need to do something to at least to cover it up. I remember my mom grabbing me by my hair and started wailing on me in front of John's mom. At this point, both my mom and John's mom are screaming at me, and I'm screaming from being hit so hard, it was all kind of blurry. My mom pushed me to the ground and went outside with John's mom, and I could hear the yelling through the door. I sat there on the floor and cried harder than I ever had. It turns out that when John's leg got caught in the snow, it broke his foot and damaged two of his toes so badly they had to be amputated. The fact that he was wearing bulky snow boots, multiple layers under thick snow pants, and the fact that kids are pretty bendy is the only reason he didn't lose his whole foot. Or worse, his whole leg. At least, that's what the doctors had told John's mom and family. I got the absolute beating of a lifetime that night, and one to match 2 days after from my dad for it. Still have the scars on my back and neck from it. And to this day, I've never seen my mom so animalistic from anger. John wasn't in school for a while, is what I heard. He was multiple grades behind me, and when I finally saw him again, he was in a huge cast from his knees to his toe, and was in a wheelchair, probably because he was too young to figure out crutches. And I avoided him like the plague. I spent the next year that we lived in the house taking every route possible to avoid walking, riding my bike or skateboard, or doing anything even remotely close to John's house. Anytime I'd see his siblings, they'd throw things at me, hurl insults, or chase me down. I practically lived in fear for an entire year of that family before we moved, because our housing situation was also caught in the crossfire of my parents' divorce. Every time I'd see John outside his house, he hobbled along or walked with a very noticeable limp. I never got to apologize in a way that matters. I mean, hell, what 12-year-old kid could? And it ate me alive every single day, to the point where I was scared to go near his house, have any of his family members see him at the store, at school, or in the Greenbelt, and I had nightmares about it for years afterwards. Eventually, the snowblower was gotten rid of, along with tons of my dad's stuff, but every day I'd see it in the garage and just have this absolute gut-wrenching feeling. To this day, I still feel horribly guilty. I looked John up on Facebook a while back. He's got a kid now, and in a video with him and his fiance playing with their daughter, you can still see he walks with a slight limp. I doubt he'll ever see this or find this, but I just want him to know I'm genuinely sorry for the effect my stupidity and idiotic actions have had on his life. I was stupid to think I had the capacity, let alone the capabilities, to take on something like that. And even now, I think about him whenever I'm using any kind of tools or machinery in and outside of my job. Thanks for taking the time to read this. I know it was long and drawn out. Please be safe around tools, machines, or equipment. It only takes a split second to permanently alter or end someone's life, or even your own. And all right, guys, with that final confession, that wraps up some disturbing confession threads. This video is pretty wild. These were some wild confessions. What are your thoughts? Drop your thoughts down below. I read every single comment, so comment down below your thoughts, and maybe I'll reply. And please like the video, subscribe to the channel if you enjoyed the video. Confessions, and also confessions from Reddit. And to be honest, they are all just insane, horrifying, and downright disturbing. And if you'd like to have your confession in a future video, please send to the email on screen now. Thank you, and I just think you'll want to stick around because today's confessions are just beyond wild and shocking. And please like the video and subscribe to the channel. It helps more than you know. And this video will be long enough already, so without further ado, let's get into some horrifying confession threads. I was once involved with a group of people that murdered an old man. I originally posted this in r/true crime, but someone suggested that I repost here. For my own safety, I'll be keeping some of the details of this story a little vague, but it's mostly the truth, with a few guesses where my memory fails me, as this was about 20 or so years ago. Some background. I was homeless on and off between 13 to 16 years old, right around the tail end of the 90s, and had little to no contact with my family. I was a moderately frequent drug user, but at the time of this story, I was mostly into weed and mushrooms, with this story containing my first experience with crystal and tweakers. In short, I was a typical 90s teenage dirtbag with little to no moral compass. I've lived most of my life in major metropolitan areas. However, my wanderings at this time had led me to a somewhat rural town about 2 hours south of Canada, somewhere around the Pacific Northwest. Through adventures in drug use, I had made a few new friends. Let's call them Jeremy, my closest friend in this group, Karen, my girlfriend, and Tony, a fellow teenage dirtbag. We spent our days figuring out ways to get our hands on some weed, for the most part, which included everything from panhandling to burglary. A couple of times a week, we'd go out and see Jeremy's girlfriend, who was under house arrest. While out there, we'd often roam the neighborhoods looking for unlocked cars to rob, shoplift from the local shops, and get drunk on cheap, disgusting wine. Looking at you, Carlo Rosie. One day, after an afternoon of minor crimes and drugs, we met up with someone I hadn't yet encountered, but who was known to my local group. Let's call him Garrett. Garrett was the only one of us over 18, which at the time provided a certain amount of cool factor and helped us spend our ill-gotten funds on a small amount of crystal. We were all crashing at Karen's house while her parents were out of town, and we all got high, this being my first time. After we were all lit, the bag was empty, and Garrett started talking about scoring some more. However, we were all broke. Garrett had a brilliant plan for getting a large chunk of money quickly. It seems Garrett had a childhood friend whose grandfather lived in the area and kept a lot of cash on hand as he didn't trust banks. Garrett's plan was to put on a mask, grab some knives, and scare the old man into giving us his money. The others were very interested as they wanted to get high. However, I was fairly adamantly against it. I won't pretend I had some sort of a moral objection, but strong arm robbery was a bit above everything I'd gotten involved with. And quite frankly, I was scared. Additionally, we hadn't cased the place at all, so we had no information about his neighbors, when people left/returned about the whole thing. My concerns were brushed aside, and they started getting ready. 2 t-shirts with sloppily cut eye holes would be the masks, and 2 butcher knives from the block in Karen's kitchen would be the weapons. Jeremy would wait outside with the engine running. They'd go in and scare the guy, get the money, and run back out. A plastic grocery bag was used to collect the cash. So, ridiculously equipped, Jeremy, Tony, and Garrett headed out the door, and Karen and I settled down to wait. This was just about sundown, and we expected the whole thing, for good or ill, would be over fairly quickly. And in retrospect, can tell that I was annoying the absolute shit out of her with my verbal diarrhea. 15 minutes turned into 30, and then an hour with no sign of the guys. The sun went completely down, and it was full night. By this point, we were super agitated and kept checking the blinds in classic tweaker form. Anytime we heard anything at all, we turned on some music and were laying on the couch when the door flew open. There in the doorway stood Jeremy, eyes wide and frantic, who burst out, "He killed him! He fucking killed him!" Behind him walked Tony, in a daze, and behind him was Garrett. Jeremy returned with a big sack of crystal, which he proceeded to get blasted on, and spent the entire night playing cards and checking the windows. It was, without question, the scariest fucking night I'd ever had up to that point. We discussed whether or not the neighbor got the license plate number, if the cops would find the car, once again abandoned several blocks away, and even if Garrett would think about killing all of us to cover his tracks. In the morning, we decided to split up. In reality, they were super annoyed by the edgy, thwacked version. They informed me that I was wanted for question in regards to a murder, and I spent the car ride and waiting room time struggling to control my sphincter. When I was escorted into the interview area, which was just a regular office, not a scary movie interview room, I was asked if there was anything I wanted to tell them. I, of course, said I had no idea why I was there, but I was shaking and sweating, and I knew they could see it. They decided to offer some information. An old man had been murdered, and they had multiple people in custody, all of whom seemed to think that the plan was my idea. I was so stunned by this, I made what was probably a rather comical "wah" face and started shaking a bit more. The interviewer outlined the basic facts that they knew, which were all pretty much on the money except for the fact that I had been pointed out as the mastermind of the operation. They even provided me with a statement from Karen, which indicated the whole plan had been mine, and that they hadn't wanted to do it, but I had threatened them into compliance, which was pretty ludicrous, as I was the young interviewer. Sat in silence and let me ramble it all out while I blew my smoke out the window. He asked why I didn't try harder to stop them or go to the police after the event, and I told him I was, quite simply, afraid of people that had killed a guy. Fortunately for me, they seemed to think my story lined up with what they knew so far, and decided that they didn't have enough evidence to charge me at the time. I was told not to leave town, and that it would be wise for me to retain legal advice. I returned home and spent the night smoking a bunch of weed, then went to sleep, trying not to think about it. That night, Garrett was tracked down and arrested at gunpoint, brought back to the station, and interrogated. He copped to the murder and told them everything that had happened. Much to my everlasting surprise, he backed my claim that I had been against the entire plan from the beginning, refused to take any money, and generally seemed to want nothing to do with the situation. From what I understand, he referred to me as just a kid who was in the wrong place at the wrong time. The next day, I was called back in, sat down, and told about Garrett's confession. This person, who I'd only met that day, confirmed everything that I had told them, and went out of his way to explain that I was not a willing participant. I've always gotten the sense that he was truly remorseful for what he had done and didn't want to see anyone else suffer for it. They told me I was free to go for the moment, but that they might have additional questions for me in the future. Later that day, I saw a story in the local paper indicating that the culprit had been apprehended and naming him. The article also mentioned that 3 minors were in custody and an unnamed male minor was questioned regarding the incident. Me. A couple of weeks later, I caught a Greyhound out of town, leaving the state and returning to my hometown in another state. I later learned that the police did come back around looking for me, but I was long gone. I was still off the grid for another year or two, and I've never been contacted about the incident since then. I've also never returned to that state. I hope you guys enjoyed my rambling story. It's mostly true as far as I can remember it, other than places where I had to fill in a couple of gaps in my memory and a couple of times that were nudged to blur the trail a bit, in case anyone feels like being a super sleuth and trying to identify when and where this happened. I later became a productive member of society and am a husband and father with a great career that I've worked hard for. A confession, and then someone replies saying, "Don't be so naive. The police are absolutely allowed to lie to you. That's why you shouldn't talk to them without a lawyer, especially if you were involved." OP got lucky. These cops actually wanted to know the truth. And then another commenter asked a question saying, "What happened to your girl?" And the OP responded saying, "This is actually a fun bit." I later found out that she told everyone I was delusional and that we had never been dating. I guess it wasn't really a match made in heaven. She ended up in a mental institution, which was probably a good place for her to be. I am evidently attracted to unstable women, except wifey, who is only somewhat quirky. And now onto a viewer confession. "Hey Snook, I hope you're doing well, pimp. I just wanted to say I appreciate all the hard work you put into making videos. I listen to every upload at work and try to comment if I have the time. Anyways, this story took place when I was in high school, and I've never really told anyone except a really close friend. That's not to say nobody knows about it, but I don't really share it. I recently was contacted by the ex season. I started to hang out with this girl even more. We went from sneaking out maybe once every couple weeks to every single night. I would pay my brother $5 and he would let me take his car out for the night. Well, one night I picked this girl up and she had weed with her. I had smoked a couple times before. However, my dad was not only a deputy at the time, but he was on the narcotics task force for the county. So despite the fact I live in a very weed-friendly state, I knew I would be screwed if I ever got caught. Even though my parents were divorced, I knew my mom would tell my dad. The risk simply was not worth the reward. Anyways, the regular MO was to pick her up, then drive the 15 minutes back to my house out in the sticks. I had a big house and it was a lot easier to chill at my house, so that cool spring night, I wasn't really thinking with the right head, and the temptation won. We ripped a blank page out of my Bible, we rolled it up, and smoked out in the woods on my property. Man, I knew I liked weed, but that night was one of the biggest mistakes I ever made. You see, I liked this girl, but really, she was just the first attractive girl to ever be interested in me like that. And right as I was figuring that out, I also figured out how much I liked smoking. And well, this girl was someone I could smoke with. And obviously, I liked the naughty time as well. So every day, I would sneak out, pick her up, smoke, and pretend to watch movies until an hour before my parents woke up. Then I would take her home. Every night. I was tired every day, and my shoulder was not getting any better in terms of playing baseball again. I was 4 months post-op and still could not throw a baseball without extreme pain for days. And without my main reason to keep my grades up, I started slacking in school. Then one day at lunch, there was talk about our spring break starting 2 weeks early. If you were inhaling O2 at the time, you know what this was. The lockdown started. I was so depressed for all the reasons everyone else was. Plus, my nightmare of a labrum slap tear that would not heal properly. I started smoking by myself all day. It was at this time I also started stealing liquor from my parents. I stopped logging into my Zooms and spiraled bad.